The wind howled through the skeletal remains of the ancient forest, whispering forgotten secrets through the gnarled branches. Lillian pulled her tattered cloak tighter around her shoulders, her breath misting in the cold night air. Every step forward felt heavier, as if the very earth conspired to drag her back. But she could not turn back now, not when she was so close to the truth. A few weeks ago, Lillian had been an ordinary scholar at the Grand University, poring over dusty tomes in search of lost histories. That changed the day she stumbled upon a cryptic passage in an obscure volume. The gate of ash and ivory shall open once more when the air returns to the hollow. The hollow, the very place where she now stood, had been nothing but a legend, a cautionary tale whispered to scare children into obedience. And yet, here it was, real and dreadful in the pale moonlight. The deeper she ventured, the more the forest seemed to close in around her. The trees grew denser, their bark etched with symbols too old to decipher. Shadows slithered between the trunks, and the occasional rustle sent her heart hammering against her ribs. But it wasn't until she reached the clearing that she truly understood the weight of the legends. A great archway loomed ahead, its surface cracked and weathered with time. It was unlike any stone she had ever seen, black as night, yet shimmering as if stars had been trapped within. At its base lay an altar, carved with sigils that pulsed faintly, responding to her presence. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers grazing the cold surface. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the clearing. "You have come at last." Lillian spun around, her hand instinctively flying to the dagger at her belt. But there was no one there, only the trees silent and watchful. Then, before her eyes, the air shimmered, and a figure emerged from the shadows. Cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowed like twin embers. "The hollow remembers you," the figure said, "and it has waited long for your return." Panic and curiosity warred within her. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The figure stepped closer, and the flickering torchlight revealed an inhuman face. Sharp angles, skin that looked more like obsidian than flesh, and markings that mirrored those on the archway. "I am the keeper," it intoned, "and you are the last of the heirs." Lillian's breath hitched. This had to be a mistake. She was no heir to anything, just a scholar with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. The keeper raised a hand, and the ground beneath the arch began to tremble. The sigils blazed to life, and the air thickened with energy. A sound, deep and guttural, rumbled from beyond the gate. "The time has come," the keeper said. "The hollow must awaken." Before Lillian could react, the gate yawned open, revealing a chasm of swirling darkness. From within, 1,000 whispers surged forth, speaking in tongues long forgotten. And then, something moved in the abyss. Lillian had spent her life chasing myths and unraveling forgotten histories. But now, faced with a truth greater and more terrifying than she had ever imagined, she realized some legends were buried for a reason. Yet, as the darkness beckoned, she stepped forward, for there was no turning back now. As her foot crossed the threshold of the gate, the air around her thickened, pressing against her as if she were wading through an unseen tide. The whispers grew into a cacophony, echoing from all directions. She squinted into the void, her pulse hammering in her ears. Shapes coiled and shifted beyond the veil of darkness. Some humanoid, others monstrous, all watching. The keeper moved beside her, unfazed by the overwhelming presence of the abyss. "The hollow is not merely a place," he murmured. "It is a force. It remembers, it learns, and it waits. It has waited for you." Lillian hesitated. Waited for what? He turned to her, his ember-like eyes flickering with something unreadable. "To return what was stolen." A cold shiver ran through her. "I don't understand." "You will." The darkness surged forward, swallowing them whole. She landed hard on an uneven stone floor. Dazed, she pushed herself up, blinking against the dim, bluish glow emanating from the walls. She was inside a cavernous hall, its ceiling lost in shadows. Pillars twisted upward like petrified roots, inscribed with the same sigils from the archway. The keeper loomed over her. "This is where your ancestors once ruled." Lillian stared at him, incredulous. "My ancestors?" He nodded. "The hollow was not always empty. It was a kingdom, a realm beyond your world. But it fell, betrayed from within. And now only the shadows remain." She took a step back. "You're saying, I come from here." The keeper studied her for a moment before gesturing toward the far end of the hall. A massive throne sat upon a raised dais, shrouded in eerie mist. The closer she looked, the more she realized it wasn't stone but something more organic, almost alive. As she neared it, the whispers coalesced into words she could finally understand. Restore, reclaim, remember. The throne pulsed, as if recognizing her presence. A memory she didn't know she had surfaced. A grand city of spires and light, of people with glowing eyes like the keeper's, of power thrumming through the air. Then, fire. Shadows rising. Screams. Lillian staggered back, gasping. I saw it fall." The keeper inclined his head. "You saw what was taken from us. And now you must decide. Will you reclaim what is yours, or leave the hollow to its ruin?" Her heart pounded. This wasn't just a forgotten legend. It was her legacy, and legacies, she knew, could not be ignored. The choice loomed before her like a storm on the horizon, and she stepped forward once more. The ground beneath her shifted, and the throne erupted with light. Tendrils of energy lashed out, weaving around her like living threads. The whispers became voices, urgent, pleading, commanding. She could feel it now, the weight of the past, the power that had once belonged to her bloodline. It surged through her, setting her veins aflame. The hollow was not dead. It was waiting. The keeper watched silently as the transformation began. The air had returned, and the hollow would rise again. But not without a price. The darkness trembled. A force deeper than memory began to stir beneath the surface of the hollow. One that had been waiting longer than even the keeper could remember. A presence. Vast, malevolent, and watching. Uncoiled from the abyss, its voice like the grinding of stone. "She is here," it whispered. Lillian gasped, feeling something awaken within her. Something ancient, something powerful. The real battle was only beginning. Lillian's heart raced as the ground beneath her feet seemed to quake, the air thickening with a cold, suffocating pressure. The trees around her groaned, their branches twisting unnaturally as if reaching toward something or someone. The faint murmur of the wind carried the remnants of a chilling whisper, growing louder with each passing second. Her pulse quickened, her breath shallow, but she forced herself to stay still, to listen. "She is here." The voice was not her own, nor was it entirely external. It curled within her mind like a serpent, slipping between her thoughts, filling the spaces where her fears once lay dormant. But who was the she it spoke of, and why had it awakened now? The hollow had been silent for centuries, buried in forgotten stories and half-sunken memories. But Lillian had unknowingly disturbed something when she had opened the ancient tome. The pages that bled black ink, the language not meant for human eyes. A low growl rumbled from the heart of the hollow, and suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. Like smoke, indistinct at first, but becoming sharper with each heartbeat. It was a woman, cloaked in tattered shadows, her face veiled by a curtain of silver hair that seemed to shimmer like the moonlight reflected in a storm-tossed sea. Lillian recoiled instinctively, her body rigid as though it had been frozen in place. "You awakened her." The woman's voice was a hollow whisper that resonated in Lillian's bones. "And now, there will be no escape." Lillian tried to speak, but no words came. Her mind was consumed by a singular thought. This is what the keeper warned me about. But the warning had come too late. The keeper, her mentor, her protector, had disappeared without a trace after a cryptic warning. Do not disturb the hollow's slumber. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. You do not understand, Lillian finally managed to choke out. Who are you? What is this place? The woman's eyes, pale and devoid of life, shifted, her gaze falling over Lillian with an unsettling curiosity. This is the hollow, yes, But it is more than a place, it is a memory. Prison. A conduit. She tilted her head, and Lillian felt as if the woman were studying her very soul. And you are its key. Lillian felt her knees weaken. The words felt like a physical blow, crashing into her chest, stealing her breath. The key? But before she could ask another question, the earth trembled again, this time more violently. The woman's lips curled into a smile, dark and full of secrets. The hollow knows you, Lillian. It remembers you. No, Lillian thought, that's impossible. I've never been here before. I've never even heard of this place before. But even as she thought it, fragments of a forgotten past began to surface, flickering like broken memories just beyond her reach. Faces, names, a place she thought she'd never seen before. The hollow, the keeper, the woman before her, all jumbled together in a tapestry of forgotten truths. I remember you, the woman spoke softly, as though reading Lillian's thoughts. You were a child once, lost in the dark, a child that was meant to forget. But the hollow never forgets. And now, you have come home. The ground quaked violently, and in the distance, something began to shift in the dark. The silhouette of something far larger, far more ancient, than any living creature Lillian had ever seen. Her breath caught in her throat, and her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out all other sounds. Get out of here, Lillian shouted. Please, I don't know what you want, but The woman cut her off, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. It is not me you should fear. It is what is coming. The shadows behind her began to stretch unnaturally, twisting and contorting into shapes that defied logic. There, among the creeping darkness, Lillian could make out eyes, hundreds of them, glowing like embers in the abyss. They blinked in unison, the expression in them one of hunger. A figure emerged from the shadows, taller than any human, its form roiling and shifting like liquid night. It seemed both ancient and timeless, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. Every step it took caused the very air to crackle, a static charge building with each movement. The creature's eyes, burning with a malevolent, primal intelligence, focused on Lillian. No, no, no. Her thoughts screamed in her mind, but her body refused to obey. The creature was impossibly close now, its breath hot against her skin. The woman beside her chuckled darkly. Do you understand now? The hollow is not simply a place, nor just a prison. It is a doorway, a gateway between worlds. And you, Lillian, have been chosen to unlock it. Lillian's vision blurred as the air grew thick with the oppressive weight of the creature's presence. She felt herself being pulled toward it, as though invisible chains were wrapping around her limbs. Her mouth dried up, and her throat constricted in terror. What does it want from me? The creature leaned down, its face now inches from hers. A voice, low and rasping like dry leaves scraping against stone, echoed in her mind. You are the vessel, the key, the harbinger. Before Lillian could react, the world around her seemed to implode. The hollow trembled once again, and from the depths, a strange, guttural roar reverberated through the ground, followed by the sound of something large and heavy moving, growing closer. The air was filled with the crackling of energy, and the temperature dropped so rapidly that frost began to form on the trees and ground. Lillian's vision blurred again, this time with a sickening sensation of falling. Falling not through space, but through time itself. The last thing she heard before everything went dark was the woman's voice, speaking one final, ominous truth. The Keeper's death was not a mistake. It was a sacrifice. To prevent this, the darkness claimed her. Lillian awoke in a place that was not the hollow, yet still very much part of it. The familiar walls of the old library stood before her, but everything was wrong. The bookshelves were cracked, the air was thick with decay, and the pages of the books fluttered, though there was no wind. She pushed herself up from the ground, her body aching, disoriented. But as she stood, something caught her attention. A figure, standing at the far end of the room. The Keeper, his form now gaunt, his eyes hollow with an emptiness that sent a chill through her spine. You've come to understand, I see, he said, his voice distant and hollow. But there is much more to know, much more to uncover. Lillian's mouth went dry. What do you mean? He smiled, but it was not the reassuring smile she had known. It was colder, sharper, tinged with regret. The hollow's doors are open now, and there is no turning back. Suddenly, the walls began to close in, and from the corners of the room, a whisper arose. One that Lillian knew all too well. It was the same voice from before, the one that had called her the key. But this time it was louder, clearer. She is coming. Lillian's pulse thundered in her ears. Her breath came fast and shallow as she turned wildly, searching for an escape. The library, once a haven of knowledge, had become a suffocating tomb. The keeper remained motionless at the far end of the room, his expression unreadable, his hollow gaze fixed on her. What does that mean? Lillian demanded, her voice shaking. Who is coming? The keeper did not answer. Instead, he lifted his hand and pointed to the space behind her. Lillian hesitated, the air crackling with an unnatural energy before she forced herself to turn. The bookshelves had melted away, revealing a vast expanse of darkness that pulsed like a living thing. Within it, shapes twisted and coiled, shifting in and out of form. And then, a figure emerged. It was cloaked in shadows so deep they seemed to devour the surrounding light. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Lillian's stomach twisted as she took an instinctive step back. Her body screamed for she knew there was nowhere to go. Then the figure spoke. You have returned, it said, its voice layered, as if countless voices spoke as one. As it was foretold. Lillian swallowed hard. Who? What are you? The figure tilted its head, and as it did, the darkness that obscured its face shifted, revealing a pale, haunting visage. It was eerily familiar, yet impossible to place. A strange, creeping sense of recognition settled over Lillian, like a forgotten dream clawing its way back to the surface. You know who I am, it whispered. Lillian shook her head, retreating another step. No, I don't. I've never. The figure extended a hand, and suddenly memories flooded her mind. Visions of the hollow of a time before now, before she had forgotten. The shadows, the whispers, the voices calling her name in the dark. A terrible truth crashed over her like a wave. She had been here before. The figure took another step forward. You opened the door. You brought us back. No, Lillian whispered, though doubt coiled in her gut. She turned to the keeper, pleading. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me. The keeper finally moved. His lips parted, but his voice was different now, deeper, resonating with an otherworldly echo. The cycle must continue, Lillian. The realization struck like a dagger. She had been deceived. The keeper had never been a guardian, never a protector. He had been a warden, ensuring that whatever lay beyond the hollow remained sealed. Until now, the walls groaned once more, then splintered apart with a deafening crack. The darkness surged forward, swallowing the remnants of the library, the keeper, and everything Lillian had known. The air shuddered with a single, unrelenting phrase, echoing through the void. She is coming. Lillian had no choice. She turned and ran, plunging headfirst into the unknown, with only one desperate thought keeping her moving. She had to remember before it was too late. Lillian's breath came in sharp gasps as she sprinted through the dense forest. The gnarled branches clawed at her clothes, the underbrush snagging her feet, but she refused to stop. She had to remember. The thought pounded in her mind like a drumbeat, drowning out the rustling leaves and the distant, guttural growl that followed her. The air around her grew thick, pressing against her skin like an invisible force. Her vision blurred for a split second, flashes of memories, fragments, teasing her mind. A blood-stained locket, a whispered name, a shadow that should not have moved. The pieces didn't fit, but she knew, deep in her bones, that they were crucial. A sharp pain lanced through her skull, forcing her to stumble. She clutched her head, a scream catching in her throat. The whispering had started again, the disembodied voices murmuring in a language she couldn't understand. But there was one word, over and over, insistent and urgent. Remember. The ground beneath her shifted, and suddenly she was falling, tumbling through what felt like empty space. The world around her dissolved into darkness. And then, like blinding, white, cold, Lillian awoke, gasping, sprawled on the floor of a stark, sterile room. The walls were pristine, metallic, too smooth to belong to the forest she had just fled. Had she fled? Her mind wavered, the memory of trees already fading like a dissipating fog. Footsteps, soft, measured, approaching. She scrambled to her feet, her pulse hammering against her ribs. The door before her slid open with a hiss, revealing a man in a white coat. His face was familiar, but she couldn't place it. Panic swelled in her chest. "Lillian," he said, his voice calm, too calm. "You need to stop running. It's time to wake up." The words sent ice down her spine. She was awake, wasn't she? She backed away only to find the walls closing in. The room was shrinking, pressing against her, suffocating her. She clawed at the walls, but they turned to mist beneath her fingers. The whispering returned, louder this time, forming sentences she could almost understand. "You don't belong here. Wake up before it's too late." The man in the coat reached for her, his fingers elongating, stretching impossibly toward her face. A scream tore from her lips as the world shattered around her once more. She was running again, but this time the forest was different. The trees pulsed as if alive, their bark shifting, their twisted branches reaching. The sky above was void black, speckled with burning red stars. And ahead, waiting in the distance, stood a cabin. One she knew but couldn't remember. Her heartbeat stuttered. This was the moment. This was where it had all begun.